Unfortunately, I cannot present it with Holger Sievert together, so you'll have to take up with me only. We'll show you a result of two surveys we did in 2020 and 2021 on how churchgoers perceived online services. It was already published in German, but I'm really the first time we're presenting this to an international community. So there were like 3 big studies on digital services in Germany. Thomas Schlag is here. He conducted a conduct study that was more like how pastors and other church workers dealt with the COVID crisis and how they really went into like digital ministry. There was like one what parishes did, and what we really did is looked at how people experienced and perceived online services. So these are the documentations of our studies in German. But what I will just show you is like give you a short introduction to worship services during COVID in Germany, tell you a little about the survey and who the respondents were, then talk about who attended online services and what was the attendance, and then who organized online services. Then I will focus on interaction, and also then at the, before the conclusion, I will show you what does it mean for like hybrid and in-person and services and digital services, how they work together. So before COVID, there were like only digital services like from special events like Kirchentag, church conventions. So it was like really like something very special, but digital services were not part of a congregation or on a parish level. They did not happen. When churches had to switch to digital services in Germany because physical gatherings were no longer allowed, it looked like this. So it was like they did a service in a church. It was either pre-recorded or live streamed, but it was basically only the pastor was there, but the church was empty. In the next year of COVID, there was like some development. There were like hybrid services. So we're like very few people sitting in the pews, and also everybody else followed online. And there you can see a video screen. So what happened outside the church building was also like included into the service. So there were like some hybrid services. But the question is, what will come next? And we hope that our study will help congregations decide how they can do digital services afterwards, and are they still important? Our answer is yes, but probably will never look like this again, but will be both like digital and in-person worship. If you look at the age range, so it's basically very few people under 20 participated in our survey, but we believe that this is also very representative of who attended digital services. So it's not what people, at least in Germany, hope it's younger people will now, because churches digital will attend it. No, it's basically whoever attends church. Normally like people in the age range like from 50 to 70, there is the peak of people who attended also digital services in Germany. We also asked, this is our survey, who are the respondents? So most people are church workers, and that they also are volunteers in their church, as you can see on this slide. So our survey is very typical of people who have a high affiliation with the church. If you look at the marital status and the living situation, you can see that most people are married who attend online services. Very few are single, but the living situation is about 42% live as couples, family with children are 34%. So these probably are people who are a little bit younger. Less than 10% of people who live by themselves, live alone. This will be interesting later on if we compare it, who do you attend a service with? Church attendance. We asked people, when did they attend online services? And 2/3, and you see like the gray figures are the figures of 2020, and the blue bars are the figures of 2021. So most people, at least in 2020, attended online services or digital services only when there were no worship services possible. So most people kept on attending, sorry, that was wrong, digital services, even though they could go to church again. So maybe this was because of fear. There might be like, you might become infected or whatever, or because they got used to it. But it's only if you see it that the majority of the people kept on going to digital services, although they could have gone to a physical or to an in-person service. This is quite interesting if you look at who did someone attend a service with. 61% attended digital services alone. Although if you look at the first, like one of the few prior charts, only 20% lived by themselves. So what we understand is that more people attend digital services by themselves than with people who they are living with. Male persons tend to go to online digital services a little bit more by themselves than women. So this is also quite interesting. So we figure out, our interpretation is that it's easier to fit a digital service into your living situation. So you go into a room by yourself, or even you watch a pre-recorded service whenever it suits your time. So it's not like you go to church as a couple or with the person you're living with, but most people do it by themselves. The devices used, we see it's the computer or the notebook. TV sets are increasing a little from 2020 to 21, but the smartphone is still important, but is not used as much as other digital devices. But if you do digital services, you have to keep in mind that they have to be suitable for a big screen and a small screen. Looking at the age distribution and who uses which type of digital device, the younger the people are, the more likely they are to use smartphones. Who do they want to, now we asked, which digital service did you attend last? This is quite important in Germany, because if you have a postal address, I can tell you which church you belong to. So this was like a big question: do people really like digitally go to the churches they actually should belong to? And most people attended the last digital service in the parish they belong to. So the other things like neighboring parish or some other parish in my town, or like some Protestant parish outside Germany, this is like, these figures are comparatively small. So people attended their last service in the parish they belong to. And if you ask which is your preferred place of online worship, the one's own parish is actually with 2/3 the place where people actually want to go to church. So you could think, if it's digital, you can do parish where you know the pastor, you could go like to some online service by a digital influencer or whatever, but it's like people want their own parish, and it's not, that's also quite clear, not the neighboring parish. So that's like important to know. If some people say, okay, we have like in one church district, we have only like one congregation that's live streaming. This is not what the people want if you ask them what is their preference. Interaction is quite interesting. Looking at it, yes, we ask like, what type of interaction do you prefer? People say, yes, basic interaction is preferred. Basic interaction, that is like email, where you can email something in before the service or during the service. So this is like, interaction is preferred. Full interaction, this is like probably what happens during video conferences, where actually everybody can get engaged, is like in 2021, it's like 20% of the people who prefer that. And what we figure out, this is the interpretation, that in the beginning, 2020, it was video streaming, not that, it was like YouTube, it was very, was used quite frequently, not yet Zoom, but the video conferences where you have like full interaction, that really gained a lot. But if you also look at it, that for like many people, broadcast on-demand video is just sufficient. What is the preferred channel for interaction? There the figures are quite clear. Video conferences are really preferred if people want full interaction. And you see the figures, the blue figures for 2021, you see that video conferences in Germany, mostly Zoom, have become more widely used. So this is where interaction goes, at least that's our figures. And what is the preferred format? That's what we ask people. If you go have a digital service, what do you want? Do you want a hybrid service? That is where people cannot go and can attend in person, but it's also like video streamed with whatever type of interaction. Some congregations do it like via YouTube, others like also do it via Zoom, or both formats are fine. There's no preference, and it's only like 19% of the people who just prefer digital services where there's no physical service related to it. This is like what we ask live versus pre-recorded services. So you see that it's not really clear that there are some people for whom live service is very important, that it's live interaction, but there's also a significant number of people for whom a pre-recorded services is also just as appealing as a live service. And now asking if people want to continue with digital services, at least 80% want digital services to continue, even if there is no COVID crisis any longer. So they still want to take digital services to the after Corona times. Looking at the figures, church attendance before Corona and after Corona. So before Corona was just in-person services. After Corona and during the Corona time, it was digital services. You see, it's if you look at groups, it's quite the same. So whoever, it's just very few people who have come to appreciating digital services who have not been to in-person services before. So it's not you gain new people, but it's the same people. And there's some people who go less to church, or there's some people who go more to church. But if you look at the blue dark figures, it's like very much the same. Also, how are digital services and in-person services perceived? What is the atmosphere? Here you see it's very, very similar, very like the same. It's like it's very same, but only the familiar is a little bit less for digital services. But you see how people perceive digital and in-service services. Digital service and in-person services, it's quite the same. Here you see that there are some people who are these are some quotes from comments from the comment section. So there's like one group of people for whom we can cluster the data, for whom in-person services are just an emergency solution. This is what you see with the person who's a little bit older. There are some people for whom digital services are just something they have newly discovered and they are very eager to pursue it. And there are also people who are say it's an opportunity, but it's like not something that we really need all. So they want to decide on a case-by-case basis if they want digital services or not. We can really take the data and develop this into clusters. So there are some people who are digital skeptics who like, it's also like with the age, so the photos are quite typical of the clusters. So there are people for whom it's only an emergency solution. There are digital pragmatists who just want digital service as an opportunity. And there are also some digital enthusiasts who just discovered something that this is something where they really can express their spirituality. And it's really for them to be important that they can do this and they discovered something really new. So the conclusion is, if we look at the data, so church members want digital services to be continued. This is like 80%. But if you look at the other figures, they have not really contributed to a significant growth in church attendance. What is important is that it's the local congregation. This is the preferred organizer of digital worship. So it's not the church district or the national church or some other church body, but it's one's own congregation who should organize digital services. This is the place where I belong. And if a church wants to be inclusive, it must integrate digital services into their congregational life, because what we see, if you look at the clusters, there are some people who have discovered that this is important to them. And if our understanding is if they cannot continue with this, what they have newly discovered, they will really start dropping in church attendance. Thank you so much.